Bucky, the emotional regulator of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. So real quick, a shout out to Elizabeth George in the comment section who hit me up with you gotta do Bucky. And you're absolutely right. I had to do Bucky. And here's the thing, and all this stuff is gonna make sense as we get deeper into this, really complex character. When we look at Fat Albert and we look at all the pieces of it, him and the guys, we tend to look at the extremes. Fat Albert in his role as the anchor, the main source of the entire story, and Rudy, who obviously is the loud, more arrogant one. And we forget the people in the middle. And this is what holds everything together, is this total dynamic. And Bucky is heart of that center. This is where he is. And he's a real metaphor that has a lot of meat to talk about, psychologically and what he represents. Now, first, his body itself is a metaphor. His exaggeratedly long neck and high shoulders is not just a cartoon gag. It symbolizes a character who reaches but never quite fits. Now, you were very astute in your pronouncement that he was kind of the black sheep. And I don't know if I go as far as to say that, but there definitely was something about him that showed that he saw everything, but he was still kind of uncomfortable and on the edges of the group overall. So I think we're not that far apart in what we're saying. He's kind of the consistent observer, always peering over the group, especially in the emotional chaos. And even the name Bucky, invoking obviously his buck teeth, doubles down on his awkwardness, saying that this is what is defining his personality. And if you'll notice, I didn't find a lot of images on Bucky, and even all the images of him in the group, he's always on the fringes of the group. That's not an accident. It's not an accident that typically he's going to be, and in this case, he's firmly in the middle. So they're showing you kind of who he is in his relative. We see the weight of Albert and the weight of Rudy on one end, and it gets lighter as you're kind of going, because you end up with the two guys who are probably the most stable of the group. That visual just stands out a lot. So in Bucky's role, he is the constant observer who sees everything. Despite being slightly odd, he's very expressive, he's very reactive, and he's always tuned into other people's emotions. And this is the embodiment of this kind of socially anxious empath, and that's what he is. While Albert gets to play the moral center, mushmouth, it's this linguistic humor, Bucky is represented by this emotional realism. His voice has hesitation, it's worried a little bit. He's kind of the hold-up guy when the gang is about to do something. He's a kid who kind of reads the room a little better, and his early portrayals, we would call him as being socially anxious and being this empathy regulator. He wasn't a coward, but he was always self-aware in the group that, for a lot of parts of it, they kind of thrived on this impulsivity. So the Junkyard Gang's dynamic really needed him. He's this neural stabilizer. He's a balance to Albert's confidence and Rudy's swagger. Again, kind of more of the centrist. And he holds the power of the observer who sees and understands everything. Now, we would call him as this witness archetype. In a group that's built around these bold personalities, the observer becomes the chronicler of the emotion. He probably understands the total group dynamic better than anyone else, because he's the one who's in tune with the social temperature of all the guys. Now, all these kids, we kind of get built that they're all surviving different types of trauma. And if I looked at him, I would say he's the type of kid who is anticipating the others' moods of people around him before they explode. And this is a form of defense mechanism for children who are born into unstable homes. His humor was always kind of a nervous laughter. It was never bravado. And this is where the psychology really deepens. Bucky's constant worry isn't fear, it's actually care. He's the friend who frets because he doesn't want anybody to get hurt. In this analytical term, his anxiety is displaced form of protective attachment behavior. He wasn't just scared, he's emotionally invested. And in this group dynamic, his anxiety serves as this emotional glue. It's the glue. It's the reminder that the rest of the crew, that there is consequences to their existence. He is the moral and emotional realism that kind of backed up all the slapstick that we got on the extremes of it. In today's term, we would look at him as being honestly, neurodivergent spectrum. He's highly empathic. He's socially and sensory sensitivity. He has a nervous laughter as this, kind of soothing behavior. He would be made fun of today himself. He would kind of be ostracized a bit if he's not in a crew like this. And we would recognize this coded representation for a kid whose nervousness and social awareness are both his coping skills. He's one of the subtle characters whose design, man, really, it mirrors childhood anxiety in a lot of ways. So this is a really, really deep character, and his silence is actually his strength, right? The not the silence, but just the, like, he takes a more humbled role. When Rudy was boasted and Mushmouth mumbled, or Fat Albert was, holding the whole world together, he felt the weight of all that. And his laughter often punctuated moments of tension, diffusing conflict, and humor was this psychological safety valve. And he used it as such. So he wasn't comic relief, not in the sense of that, that figure. He was emotional truth in this cartoon form. He represented a kid who still shows up for his friends. He's kind of neurotic, he's a little awkward, he's a little jittery. These are the traits that make him the most human member of the Junkyard Gang because of his relative space. He taught us that it's okay to be sensitive in a world that rewards swagger, and that awareness, especially emotional, and care are its own types of being cool.